Hi everyone and welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. This week we're going to look at the juniors from the World Cup and in particular -70 junior male and Mauricio Maggioni from Argentina who took home that division. Very interesting division, a couple of very good fights and he definitely had a tough path to victory. It's going to be a good one.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 115 of Fight Chat Friday. So this -70 division, Adrian, in the juniors, usually it's one of these ones where some of the lads bump up and they get really big moving into the senior divisions and go to the higher weight categories, but then some of the lads kind of stay at that weight throughout their senior career as well. So it's an interesting division how people kind of go after the junior division. So it's always an interesting one to check
out.
I
always feel like the people who start their career there as well, it's a big challenge, because if you have someone who's just, a bigger 14, 15-year-old, it can be quite a tough thing starting in that, and you went that route yourself. Yeah, so it can be quite a challenge because, so many of the juniors, they start off in the lighter weights, and as they get older, they go up through the weights, and they have a kind of an even move through the competitive weights. Whereas if you start in those heavier weights, you tend to be thrown up against the older competitors right away. So it's a very interesting thing to watch. So, an awful lot of work goes into, or is worth putting into, looking at, when the growth spurt happens and, how weight tracks with that and so on, because I do think it's a tough one for the competitors who find themselves just a bit taller and a bit heavier at that earlier age.
Yeah, definitely. So it'll be interesting to hear now as we look through some of these fights. We're going to have 5 matches in total, and we'll see the differences as well between the junior and the senior divisions.
Yeah,
because we have gone through a good few of the senior routes to the final at this stage from the World Cup. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any differences in styles and tactics or anything that clearly obvious that we can discuss as well.
Absolutely. So we'll kick off with round 1, and Mauricio's up against Ireland's Joey Shaw. And in this case, Thomas Fogarty has stepped in to coach. So I recognise the face across the ring.
Yeah, so we have Mauricio is in red and we have Joey in blue. So starting off, Joey's trying to push the pace a little bit, but he's able to get a nice splits, Mauricio, and he's quite tall for the 70 division as well.
Does seem to be,
so the range that you can then find on the end of the leg, sometimes that puts people off, that they're not expecting you to come to hands, but he's able to really get to hands in a good way, and we can see this as we go through the bouts. But he's able to launch there, kind of like Sergey we've seen in the 63 seniors, from a good distance out, and he seems to be able to get that every time. So it's interesting how he's able to sneak in without getting caught on the way.
I think from our point of view, in terms of looking at what Joey was doing, is like starting to do some of the more late game, more complicated stuff for when you have a read of the match too early, and not getting his simple things dialed in. So I don't think Joey was controlling his distance particularly well, and I think that's where he wasn't presenting a threat off the front leg in a way that really challenged Mauricio there. And I think
Single
that's where
shots too.
Yeah, I think that's where those longer blitzes weren't punished. It was Joey's so focused on coming forward and making his own shots score. He's not actually closed off the distance or presented enough of a threat off that front leg for Mauricio to deal with.
Yeah, for me, the big difference here as well is just a better understanding of points. As in, like, Joey in blue is really, he's going for it, he's giving it everything he has, but he's almost treating it more like a fight as opposed to being clever with the scores. Where Mauricio, you can see him here, he's quite aware of what scores and what doesn't, and he's able to pick off those cleaner shots, which gets the return every time and makes the difference in ITF.
One of the interesting things that, and we can see it as the matches go through, he has a range of shots that he'll go to, and because he's throwing a range of shots on different sides, and using the different tools.
Great back kick there.
Lovely back kick, and following the missed turning kick, so it's kind of a classic combo on the pads too. But it does make it a little bit more difficult to read him, because there is that much of a diverse play there, where very many people have that front leg play, and if it's more about varying the depth, the distance, and the repetitions on the front leg. Whereas, he does offer quite a bit of range in terms of his shot selection.
That's a great point, because like everybody, as you said, has a front leg. If you don't have it now, you're going to be struggling in ITF. So it's almost like a given. So it's then how you switch it up and give something different off that. But we highlighted as well in previous videos, particularly very early on Fight Chat Friday with Zach Espy, the importance of being tall on the hands. And I think Mauricio does a great job at that. When he's punching, he's always the person on top. And I don't know if he's an older junior, but he kind of has that presence, which makes a big difference as well to the visual of being able to score with the hands.
Well, let's jump ourselves into round 2. And he fights the first of 2 Scottish competitors that he's going up against. So Igaris Savitskas. And again, in this case, we have Argentina in red once again and Scotland in blue.
Yeah, so again, we see that long, rangy leg off the front leg, and that sets everything up, really, because if you can get ahead on the scoreboard, then the other person has to come to you, which again plays into that distance management that you have if you're a big, taller guy. But again, we see that blitz. He's very explosive off that blitz, and he's catching people really, really well. And it's that type of blitz we do see, particularly from Argentina, not the kind of like point fighting style blitz, but more of that sprint and that launch, and that gives you, of course, a good bit of momentum. Now we do see something that from a junior, I suppose, you see areas you can work on is he goes for that turning kick off the blitz often, Mauricio, and he's not able to find the correct distance. So that's something that he can work on for sure, bringing it to the senior ranks.
Nice catch there with the turning kick as the finish.
That was one that he actually did brilliantly, but the one off particularly in the body, we see a couple of them that he's just picking the incorrect moment. But the headshots, great. Like, go for them all day long. Get those clear difference on the scoreboard. That's what you want.
You can see that 3 or 4 inch difference in height, though, and I think it comes back to the blitz where Igaris from Scotland, he's, when he's fighting up that height, you'd expect him to be playing that push-pull game and looking to get to hands and finish up or follow on with the legs. And I think when you do that and you disconnect the front leg, that's where you can kind of get caught, because you're looking to set up your own distance to get it. So he's pushing and pulling, but he's in too much of a straight line. I think he hasn't found any angles, and he hasn't really threatened to move to an angle. So it's left it quite easy for Mauricio to be able to time the hands, I feel.
Yeah, and we've seen there maybe like a minute and a half through the 2 examples that I mentioned about finding the turning kick to the body, just a little bit off in the distance. But yeah, I agree with that point 100%. And a big thing for me as well from this Scottish competitor is getting his foot to the outside correctly, because when he goes to hands often, he's getting stuck and trapped in the side facing, because it's a left versus right battle often, and he's getting his foot trapped on the inside, which doesn't allow him to punch correctly from time to time. So that's something as well that has a big impact.
So we move into the quarterfinal, and in this round it's Jonathan Billund from Sweden. So I think this one looks to be a more even height battle, at least.
Yeah,
and in this case Argentina's in blue.
A bit more intensity with this and a bit more footwork. So now we're starting to see, as you come through the rounds, a bit more, let's say a little bit more experience and a bit more craftiness in terms of the competitors, because they need to make better decisions here now. But again, we see that range of shots from Mauricio, which is good to see. You don't know what's coming. He's unpredictable, and you don't know how to counter him in a solid way. So you kind of have to bring the fight to him, which again is a difficult thing to do when he has that distance management with that front leg and the height.
Yeah, I mean, what we can see from Sweden is, looking to take more of a side-facing stance, using the side kick a little bit more, and using the slip a little bit to get off the line as the threat comes in from the hands. But as often happens, if you are entirely side-facing, you can get caught if your opponent can get outside your front leg, and you've kind of got nowhere to go but to turn the back or try to squeeze in a back kick, and you can see that he kind of gets caught a few times. With Mauricio's leg outside of his front leg, and it really does kind of end up taking away your scoring chances.
Yeah, so this one went to a draw, and like the red competitor from Sweden had a great finish to the normal round, let's say, with the front leg side kick, but then kind of gives up on it again. It's like we didn't see it for 90% of the normal time, and then we didn't see it here in this extra time as well. It only happened the last 10 seconds of normal time, where he came forward with a good pressure off that front leg, nice high chamber and pumping with the knee, nice drive on the side kick, and then he just gives up on it again. So that's an important thing to have in your game. Know what works, know what's good, and know what's getting you the return, and then don't be giving up on it so easy.
I think that's where, what we would always be saying to people is, get your video, start to clip that video and give yourself your evidence, to build your confidence on. Show yourself that you have a tool, that you have a shot or a skill, and show yourself often so that you can be confident and you can have that bank of evidence that tells you, in a way, you can't argue with yourself that, yes, this is something I'm good at, this is something I can do.
Yeah, we're going to probably see it here now as well towards the end of this clip. So coming towards the end, I think it comes right up after this one. So you see, here's the good side kick, pushing off that front leg, squeezing, getting good distance, and high knee, pumping that to the body. And I just would like to see a bit more of that from Sweden if he was to get rounds more. Excellent.
Moves us into our semi-final, and we have Norway, Elias Vestvik. So Norway in blue here, and again looking like a tall competitor, but a very solid sidekick. We see what we often see, unfortunately, from a couple of the Norwegian juniors, that the contact is not welcome. And, you can see that the few times that there's a bit of contact that lands, it does look like he's rattled somewhat. And I often wonder, does that make an impression on the referees? Like, is there a point where the referees just go, oh, okay, you're not going to get through this, or you're not going to win this one, when you take a big reaction to a hit? But,
it gives the other side confidence too, because now
massively.
This is after happening twice. Mauricio from Argentina is saying, okay, like I can go to hands at will almost, and because the other opponent has a little bit of doubt. So when they have a little bit of doubt now, it's easier for you to kind of go, and it gives you confidence first off, and then second of all, it gives you that telltale sign that there's a path to victory here, particularly with hands.
Yeah.
So you don't want to give those tells away. If you do get hurt, try to hide it and not give away any tells to your opponent.
And that's it. And I mean, we can see, Norway is reliant on that good sidekick and keeping that distance. And once Mauricio gets the read of it and creates the pressure, lets him get to hands, that's more than sufficient for that.
Yeah, and he still mixes up the kicks really, really well. So even band-aids, the whole lot. We see the range of shots from him, I think, now in the first couple of fights, even twisting kicks and front kicks, the whole lot. So yeah, I think he's a crafty guy. He's well able to throw the shots.
So that brings us into the final, where Mauricio meets his second Scottish opponent, and this is Daryl Cox, and it's a belter.
Cracker of a fight. Really enjoyed watching this. Both guys going for it. Plenty of action. Bit of better ring control at the beginning, particularly from Mauricio, but Daryl's looking for that headshot as well off the entries. So, but the both guys are game. Like, they're not giving each other an inch. They're going to hands, looking for the shots and the exit, going again and going again. It's not where I just go, oh, and then I stop. It's kind of like he's looking for every little possibility for them to get that extra bonus score. And we've spoken about this from the World Cup, but that's the key. You need to get every opportunity you can and squeeze what you can to get the scores on the board.
Yeah, I mean, the only kind of criticism you'd have in terms of like Daryl's work there is just it's the accuracy off the hands. It seems to be kind of slipping both sides of the head a little bit, a good example of it there again, where that looks like a great exchange on the surface of it, and then, as you're watching it, the hands aren't connecting. So the body weight is getting there, and that great counter, absolutely wonderful first score, but no accuracy on the hands after that, unfortunately.
He's able to get the first one in really well.
Yeah.
And then the second one kind of goes amiss often. So, like, if you find that there's two things you can go from there. You can either go towards gaining momentum and pushing them back to find a bigger score, like a head kick, like this, for example. So this is a nice, better option from him. Or you go one in and then come back, pull out again. So you can go like front hand and front leg and then pull back out, reset. So there's options off that.
I love that all the characteristics are there, though. You've got that commitment, you have the willingness to go and engage with it. That was a really, really nice counter backhand again. The focus is really there. The willingness to come through the shots. I mean, absolutely fantastic fighting spirit. I think probably not getting the return he's hoping for or expecting off of the shots that are being thrown. He's definitely throwing a higher volume of shots. Sorry, say it again, Richie.
Yeah, exactly. For the amount of work rate he's putting into it, exactly, he's not getting that return, is he?
Yeah, no.
So it's like, it's just like if you just tidy those small things up, and that's all comes from experience. I'm sure he's going to watch back these fights as well and pick up on those bits. In the moment, you're like, how come I'm not getting a return here? It's probably a little bit unfair, let's say. But then when you go back and watch it, you understand that like the referees can only give those very, very clear shots. And when you speak about it time and time again, you have to tidy up the clarity of the shots if you want to get the scores on the board. And Mauricio does that really well, like the extension that he gets on his hands in particular.
Being tall, getting the arm extended, it's a big deal.
Yeah. It's impossible not to see the clarity of that. Like, it's very, very long. So yeah, the longer you can have your shots, the better. You don't want to be like this here, and like none of these are scoring. It's the after shot that Darren looks for, which is a good thing to do. That's what you want to do. Get those differentiators is what we call them. So you want to get those definitely. But yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure he walked out of that ring and felt fairly hard done by, because, you know, when you're in there and you know you're doing that good work and you're throwing the shots and you're feeling it's going great, you know, it's going to feel pretty hard to turn around and look at that scoreboard and go, you know, it's not there for me. But, you know, really, really positive signs for the future there as well.
No, hats off to Mauricio. He did really well, and he had 2 draws coming through here as well in 5 fights. So like not only his physical cardio, let's say, but his mental fitness as well, because he was focused the whole time, tuned in, not making any silly mistakes. His ring position was always good, always going forward, putting the pressure on and not giving any inch to his opponent. He was throwing shots. Here we go, like last 30 seconds. So yeah, he took that one and well deserved.
Excellent. So, folks, that brings us to the end of the minus 70 division for the junior males at the World Cup. We are definitely looking at a few of the harder to find ones. So, unfortunately, the live streaming of the gala from the World Cup isn't available online, and it's hard for us to grab that. But if people do have video from the World Cup, particularly the finals gala, do let us know. Hit us up with that. We'd love to cover a couple more of the final fights, and in particular the team sparring, the male team sparring would be really, really good to get that. And we'd like to look through that for everybody. So if you do have it, if you do have a copy of it and it's in reasonable quality, send it on to us. Let us know. We'd be delighted to have it and go through it for you.
Yeah, and we expect to have a nice juicy division next week, hopefully, everything going well. So one of the tastier divisions from the World Cup, and somebody who has been a competitor for a long time now, coming through, beating some top names in ITF. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot to take away from that one. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe if you're not, and we'll catch you in next week's episode.
Looking forward to it. Bye now.